This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Carter Diving welcoming you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And there will not be a birthday boy / girl today. Anyway, this is a somber one because on April 15th, 1989, as you see in the picture, something big happened and it wasn't good. Anyway, the Hillsborough disaster happened. It happened April 15th, 1989. In the FA Cup, the biggest knockout tournament in the world, other than the World Cup and all the other major tournaments, happened. It was going to be Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. Liverpool was one of the best teams of the 1980s, and Nottingham Forest won back-to-back European championships in 1979 and 1980, 1-0. Liverpool was led by the great Kenny Dalglish, becoming player manager, and Nottingham Forest had Brian Clough, the Brian Clough. Anyway, Liverpool would face Nottingham Forest in the first semi-final. The winner gets to go to the FA Cup and Wembley, the old Wembley, with the Twin Towers. When going to a final at Wembley was huge and not just like a super common sense and all that. So anyway, there was a lot of things going on and all that. Sheffield Wednesday was the home ground for Hillsborough, but the FA Cup at the time, in 1989, had the two semi-finals at neutral sites, which means basically that with Liverpool playing against Nottingham Forest, they couldn't play the FA Cups on semis on home turf, or even at Wembley, like they do now. Anyway, the kickoff was for 3 British time or 10 a.m. Eastern time, if you will. At the time of the disaster, English soccer stadiums had high steel fencing between the that cut off the spectators from the playing field because of pitch invasions and hooliganism. Unfortunately, hooliganism took its toll on English soccer, not just with the clubs, but internationally too. The England national team has had hooligans cause trouble, especially in 1980 at the Euros. And also because of Liverpool supporters getting their hooligan-like behavior, attacking Juventus fans before Liverpool took on Juventus in the 1985 European Cup final at Heysel in Belgium. That would be costly to English soccer. Thankfully, though, the national team was allowed to play their competitions, but the club teams could not play the European Cup, or what would have been the Champions, or what was the Champions League at the time. But basically, English clubs could not play in domestic competitions outside of England. So, like, Liverpool could have been one of the best European teams in the 1980s, but because of the ban, which was 7 years, and then it was docked down to 5 for good behavior, it was just huge and all that. They had the steel fencing. Unfortunately, Sheffield Wednesday did have criticism about their venue being bad. They neglected safety in the stadium, especially after an incident in the 1981 FA Cup semifinals. The Leppings Lane under the ground, where the incident happened in 1989, did not have a safety certificate. But there were risks in confining fans in pens because when Bradford City had their stadium fire in May 1985, there were fans who died because of that and all that. So anyway, Hillsborough hosted the 1981 semi-final between Tottenham and Wolves. Unfortunately, hundreds of spectators were permitted to enter the Leppings Lane Terrace. Then could safety be accommodated? 38 injuries. Fortunately, though, no deaths. Anyway, the police said that the club would have to reduce its capacity. But the Sheffield Wednesday chairman, or the owner, basically said no way. But nevertheless, they did divide the Leppings Lane into 3 separate pens. Unfortunately, the safety certificate was never renewed. So anyway, because of this, Hillsborough was not allowed to host the FA Cup semi-final for years. In 1987, they would host an FA Cup semi-final, and 88. Well, 87 quarter-final was between Sheffield, the home team, and Coventry, and then the semi-final between Coventry and Leeds. So anyway, it was like horrible and all that. Liverpool and Nottingham Forest met at Hillsborough in 1988 as well, so all that. So they needed some safety moves. There was a lot of build-up happening and all that for Hillsborough. I mean, Liverpool and Nottingham Forest both were decent competitors. There were a lot of fans outside the Leppings Lane turnstiles trying to get into that side of the field for the game between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. BBC's legendary commentator John Modson said there was an uneven distribution of people at the Leppings Lane. It was huge. And then, of course, fans were trying to get in the turnstiles and all that. There were rumors that the game would have had to be postponed for 20 minutes to deal with the situation, but they said no. So anyway, with 5,000 fans trying to enter through the turnstiles and safety concerns, the police, to avoid fatalities outside the stadium, opened a large exit gate that permitted the free-for-all supporters departing the stadium. After that, supporters would enter at a fast walk, all that. Unfortunately, the fans would try to get into those pens, and there was a disaster and all that. So anyway, fans were not happy because they were being pushed up against the bars and all that. Bruce Grobbelaw, the goalkeeper for Liverpool, said that there would be fans and all that. Unfortunately, by 3:05, fans were on the pitch because the barriers gave way, the metal crushed barriers and all that. Fans would be climbing over the terraces and all that. The crowd would be on the pitch and all that. And the soccer players were told there would be a 30-minute postponement. Unfortunately, though, there was a lot of problems and all that. There were some fans who died of compressive asphyxiation while standing, though. So, of course, it was just disastrous. 42 ambulances arrived at the stadium and all that, and would try to get people to local Yorkshire hospitals and all that. Condolences would flood in from across the world, obviously. Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister, and the Home Secretary, or basically the Deputy, Douglas Hurd, visited Hillsborough the day after the disaster met survivors. Anfield was open on Sunday because fans would pay tribute to the dead. Basically, there were 96 dead, all Liverpool supporters, no Nottingham Forest supporters. A lot of people said that Nottingham Forest fans were shouting and all that, and Liverpool fans took it as an offense that Nottingham Forest were cheering for the accident. But, of course, Nottingham Forest fans did not know what was going on. So, basically, it was disastrous and all that. So, Nottingham actually had a moment of silence and all that. So, anyway, there was a mass of 3,000 people in Liverpool and all that. So anyway, the FA would have to conduct an inquiry, says the FA Chief Executive Graham Kelly and all that. And basically, Kelly said that they need all-seater stadiums, which is one of the key moments here that you should take away from the Hillsborough disaster. Because the Hillsborough disaster was in a stadium that did not have all seating. Basically, people were standing on terraces. And you know, if you see soccer matches in England before 1990, some stadiums did not have like bench seating basically you had to stand close to the edge, near the pitch and all that. So that was one of the biggest recommendations, is to make it all cedar stadiums. That means that stadium accidents can't happen the way it was. Unfortunately, UEFA president Jacques Georges said that basically the Liverpool supporters were beasts and it was a pitch invasion. Unfortunately, incorrect. That was incorrect, and Liverpool wanted his head on a platter. 5 weeks after Hillsborough was the FA Cup final at Wembley, as Liverpool took on Everton, their local rivals. If I remember correctly, Liverpool won that, didn't they? Yeah, Liverpool won that. It was shocking. But it was a perfect way to honor those fans who died, was by them winning the FA Cup. Unfortunately for Liverpool, they could not win both the FA Cup and the league. They had a chance, but they fouled up against Arsenal, as Arsenal needed to win 2-0 or better to win the title. And they did in the last seconds on a Michael Thomas screamer. All that. So anyway, there was a lot of people and all that. Yep. The effect on survivors was terrible. I mean, psychologically. I mean, geez, you really think that psychologically it wouldn't affect you? You don't know anything. All that. So anyway, there were a lot of people who died and all that. But anyway, in the end, well, there was actually a 97th death in 2021 because someone was in a vegetative state. So of the 97 victims, 41 of them were in their 20s, and 38 were from 10 to 19. That's just disastrous. I mean, as a teenager. So 79 of the 97 victims were under the age of 30. Just shocking. That's shocking. The oldest was 69. So at least there wasn't any super old people. There was a lot of coroner investigations and all that. The Taylor inquiry and all that. And there were recommendations for ground safety and all that. And Lord Justice Taylor said that policing on the day broke down, and the main reason for the disaster was the failure of police control and all that. And the decision to open the secondary gates and all that. And of course, Sheffield Wednesday was criticized for Leppings Lane having not enough turnstiles and all that. And you know, the police control was trouble with the behavior of the fans and all that. You know, there was some issues and all that. However, the report did dismiss the theory that fans attempting to gain entry without tickets or with forged tickets were contributing factors. Although some fans did say that they were given, that people were not ripping the stubs off their tickets. All that. But they basically said the emergency response couldn't have been better. Like, it was there. All that. The Taylor report would also have the effect on stadiums in England, saying that perimeter and lateral fencing would be removed and top stadiums would be all cedars and all that. So most of the Premier League and Football League teams would have their all cedar stuff and all that. So it was huge. But the government said that regulation would be relaxed for the lower two English leagues, known as League One and League Two, by like the Premier League and Football League, the top two tiers, all that. Also, as a requirement of the Premier League in England and Wales, and all that. So there was a lot of independent panels for Hillsborough and all that. In 2012, that Hillsborough independent panel concluded that no Liverpool fans were responsible in any way. It was just a lack of police control, and things were just terrible and all that. You know, they were crushed into those pens, and that's not good and all that. And the findings actually concluded that some witness statements were altered and all that. And a lot of them were amended because to change negative comments about South Yorkshire police. Basically, it was a PR campaign and all that. So, of course, the weight hurt and all that. There were altered police reports and all that. There was a lot of investigations and all that. There were permanent memorials for everything. Well, of course, the memorial at Anfield. The Hillsborough Memorial at Anfield. It's beautiful. There's a memorial at Hillsborough, obviously. All that. And it says, in memory of the 96 men, women, and children who tragically died and the countless people whose lives were changed forever. FA Cup semi-final, Liverpool vs. Nottingham Forest, April 15, 1989. You'll never walk alone. In fact, the Liverpool soccer crest had flames on both sides of their crest for the fans who lost their lives in Hillsborough. It's amazing and all that. Lots of ceremonies and all that. Anyway, yeah. So fans were just like paying tribute to everything. The Hillsborough disaster touched not only Liverpool, but football clubs in England and around the world. Everton, who are Liverpool's biggest rivals, were affected. Supporters lost friends and family. On April 1989, 4 days after Hillsborough, the second leg of the European Cup semi-final between AC Milan and Real were played. But basically, there was a giant minute silence and all that. Bradford and Lincoln would actually play a friendly match to benefit the victims of Hillsborough. Because Bradford and Lincoln were the two teams that were involved in that famous Bradford City fire in 1985. But Bradford was celebrating a trip to, I believe, the second tier, if my memory serves me right. And there was a fire and all that. Liverpool was asked by Celtic, from Scotland, to play a friendly match and all that. Liverpool easily won, but that's okay. As a result, Liverpool's match against Arsenal was actually delayed from April 23rd till the end of the season, and that actually led to the league title winning for Arsenal and all that. So anyway, the biggest issue was how the media portrayed it, especially the Sun newspaper, one of the biggest newspapers of all time. The Sun front page headline on April 19th said the truth. Some fans picked pockets of victims. Some fans urinated on the brave cops. Some fans beat up a police person giving kiss of life. Sadly, though, that was completely wrong and all that. And, the Sun was just terrible and all that. In Liverpool, you rarely see the Sun being either purchased or even to stock it and all that. So the owners would lose £15 million a year in revenue because of Liverpool saying no way about that. So basically, yeah. So yeah, that was huge and all that. The Times even were criticized and all that. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of people who made stupid moves and all that. There was a documentary in 2014 called Hillsborough. And, you know, ESPN did that for the 30 for 30 series under the Soccer Stars thing. It was amazing to see the 2 hours. And, you know, anyway, it was amazing. Hillsborough, that 30 for 30 was aired in 2014, the 25th anniversary of the accident. So, yeah, just shocking. Just really shocking about all the big. This is one of the worst soccer disasters in world history. And, you know, it brought change to the British game and made a newspaper fucking pay for their sins. I mean, News of the World closed down, but they were not involved in this. The Sun should be ashamed of themselves. Anyone who thought this was justified should be ashamed of themselves. Just saying. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.